Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of To The Point podcast. This is episode 67. And for the first time tonight, we're doing something a little different. We're doing a roundtable where we're going to go around the table and we're going to predict Canada's 2022 Olympic hockey roster. And I got three great panelists with me tonight. I'll start off by introducing the founder of Country Liberty, the owner, and this is his second appearance on To The Point, but we're happy to have him back. Sawyer, thanks for coming back on.
Thanks a lot for bringing me on, buddy. We had a great time in the first round there, a lot of laughs. I'm still laughing about it, and tonight will be a good time as well.
Absolutely. Joining me again for the second night in a row, Kennedy's really being nice with her time, giving us Shamus again. Obviously, my co-host on Tuesday nights is back here Wednesday. Shamus, thanks for taking the second night this week. Really appreciate it.
Oh, she's, that's still a big deal. Her time's a given. No, I'm happy to be back. And for all those who can't see, I'm wearing my vintage St. Louis Blues Chris Pronger jersey, great Olympic player in his own right. So I thought it was only fitting to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Pronger, I know Sawyer's a big fan. I'm a big Shay. I think everybody on this panel can appreciate what he did as a player.
Oh, yeah.
And then we'll finish off with a good friend of the podcast, third time on. I know he's coming on tonight with a heavy heart, but just like to say to you, Case, thanks for coming on, and we'll dedicate tonight's podcast to your grandfather. So hopefully he's watching us tonight, and I'm just happy that you're coming on with us and talking tonight. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate jumping on, Jug. Appreciate long week, but I'm happy that the boys are going tonight and we're chattering. So looking forward to it. Getting to another place. So sports is always the safe haven, right?
Absolutely. So we're gonna go around the table. So what the format's gonna be tonight, everybody, is we're gonna go line by line. We'll start with the forwards. We'll each give you our top line. We can compare and contrast how we look at this lineup. So go to the first line. We'll start with Shamus. He'll give us his line. Then we'll move to Sawyer, Casey, and myself. Maybe we'll have similar lines, and we'll compare at the end I'm going to keep track of how many players we actually have the same. So at the end, we can kind of tally it up and look at it that way. So should be a lot of fun. Anybody can jump in, and I'm sure we'll have some disagreements, or in Shamus's case, the lack of Maple Leaf talent may be affecting him personally. So we'll address that as we get there. But Shay, let's start with you. Who's the top line for Team Canada in the 2022 Olympic Games?
Yeah, so my vision for the top line would definitely have to go Jonathan Huberdeau on the left side, Mcdavid in the middle, and then Mitch Marner on the right side. I think of the focal point of this team, and probably a guy who's going to do a lot of the heavy lifting, and that's Connor. And his main asset is speed. He's by far the fastest player in the league, I think. And he's going to be able to just create so many, 2-on-1s, 2-on-0s just by breaking out and getting into the right spots. At first, I really wanted to put a goal scorer here because obviously Connor just gets the puck so well. We see that with him and Draisaitl, but honestly, he can score in his own right. So if someone's, slapping it around to him, I think he'll be able to put it in the back of the net. So yeah, Huberdeau, Marner, both quick players, both really great hands. I think it'll be just an exciting line. It's definitely more offensive line than defense, which I have later on and we'll get to later. But yeah, that's kind of what I envisioned for my top boys wearing the red white with McDavid as my captain. By the way, I don't know if anyone picked their captain's assistant captain.
Interesting. I don't think there's a chance in hell he wears the C, but that's just
okay. Okay.
Let's pivot to Sawyer quick. Who do you have as your top line?
Sure. So as I mentioned you guys there before we jumped on, I actually struggled with my first line. I built this team from the fourth line up. To be honest, my third line I knew right away, and the top two lines I kind of struggled a little bit. But I think it'll make sense when you see kind of the rest of my roster. And I started with that first line center, obviously McDavid. He's the best player in the world, best player on this team by far. And I debated, if I thought McKinnon would be a winger with on the McDavid line, because the speed that those two guys would bring would just be unbelievable. I mean, something the world never seen. But I ended up, because I like McKinnon being a true center, he's not on this line. I went with Point on the right side. I love Point, passes the puck really well. McDavid, as you mentioned, he's so fast. I think that he would be electric with Point, because Point's such a heads up player. And then on the left side, and this is kind of my most interchangeable probably player on the roster, really, is Stamkos. I picked Stammer because he's a pure goal scorer, with Point and McDavid, able to open up time and space. I think Stammer's a guy that can just finish. And I also think he's got a lot to prove. He's been injured. His relationship with Tampa has been questioned, where there's no move clause, things like that. And as of late on the international ice, I feel Stammer has a lot to prove. So I think he's going to have a chip on his shoulder, and he has that existing chemistry with Point as well. So that would be my first line for Team Canada.
Yeah, interesting. I like the Stamkos element because, yeah, you're right. I mean, you're looking at McDavid, he's such a good passer. I mean, he can obviously score, but looking at my roster, looking it over, I think the one thing I lack is just natural goal scorers, and that's obviously what Stamkos brings to the table. And obviously Point is invaluable as a player. Any thoughts, Shay, from you after seeing Sawyer's list? He didn't have Marner, which you had. Any thoughts on his line?
I thought it was pretty weak, to be honest. No, it was good. The one thing I do like about having Point and McDavid together is Point's a much more not grittier, but he's willing to go into the corners. He's willing to dig for the pucks a little bit more than McDavid is, and I think he'll oftentimes probably usually come out of those scrums with the puck. And who you want to get it to, Connor, because he's going to make a quick pass either to Stammer, like you said, to set up a play, or take a shot on net himself. So that was an interesting. I never really had that combination in mind, but
yeah, and you guys will see too when we get to my second line here. After Casey goes through his first and Jug, I feel like my wingers are interchangeable on my top two lines. Like I feel like who's ever hot could play with McDavid between the right and the left winger. But again, I like the Stammer and Point combination just because they have existing history and such a short tournament and such a short time to play together. I think that existing chemistry is important. Yeah,
no, great points. And Casey, how about you? First line for you.
Well, me and Shamus aren't too far off on this one, surprisingly. I got Huberdeau on the left wing. I think he runs everything down in Florida. Well, on the Panthers anyways, I think he runs the show. And in the center slot here, I got McDavid, just the number one center right now, besides, you can argue him and Sid. I'll back Sid, but whatever. And, on the right side, I was flipping through players. It's not Marner, but, the whole world wants to see McDavid and McKinnon, the two fastest players. They want to see them. You would hate to be a defenseman, like getting stuck flat-footed, because you're screwed then. You're toast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
honestly, for entertainment value, like it would be through the roof to have those two guys on the ice. It'd be like a human cheat code, like it wouldn't be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's what I think. That's just, like the two of them are just, when they get chugging, if they, that's just the killer right there. Like you can get so many offensive chances just on a puck turnover and, gone. Just
fair enough.
Yeah, no, oddly enough, me and Casey had the same first line. Yeah, I had to put McDavid and McKinnon together. I just think it can change in a drop of a hat, like you mentioned, Sawyer. McKinnon can move to center in a split second if it's not working, and you can elevate. I think a Point would make a lot of sense because the Crosby line that I have together, I don't think will move. But I just think you got to try it. I mean, your first couple of games is going to be against, Latvia or, Belarus. They're basically exhibition games to start the tournament. Just go out there and tear their head off, get some confidence, and go from there. When you play the Finns, you play a tougher opponent. I still think this line, I mean, who's going to stop them? Like you said, Casey, I mean, even Victor Hedman's going to have a hard time containing these guys. So, and Huberdeau's a better goal scorer than people give him credit for. He can get 90 points, but he's going to score 30, 35 goals in his sleep. So he can finish with McDavid finding him the puck or McKinnon. So I like what this line could bring to the table.
Yeah, I think it's hard to disagree. I mean, we're talking about the best players in the world, and it's it's hard to disagree. And again, McKinnon, I think he will play with McDavid, like you said, because it's exciting. But I'm bringing that speed together, but also bringing that speed on back-to-back lines, because every country is going to have their top D pairing playing against McDavid. Mm-hmm. And what if McKinnon is coming right up next and you're using that second tier defenseman, so I think, again, there's a really good chance that McKinnon plays the wing with McDavid, but I got him. And again, Sidney Crosby probably isn't going to want to be a third line center, so that might play a role. But if I was the GM of the team, I'd put McKinnon at second line center. But right. Definitely don't disagree with you guys with having him on the wing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a good point. Again, I agree. I think a lot of it has to do with Sid. Great player, but the guy emotionally is not the best. I'm trying to be nice here for in case Trevor Ryan's listening, but emotionally and not getting his way, he's pretty good at pouting. So interesting to see what happens there if his Nova Scotia brethren gets the ice time that he feels he deserves. But good points there. Shay, how about your second line, unless you have anything to add to our top lines here?
No, I don't. That's fair enough. The only difference is, in my opinion, is just about spreading the wealth, I guess you could say. In my opinion, it even though it would be a benefit if those two guys were on the same line and had an off night, I think your odds against like a Russia or a US team maybe slandered, just because I think that if those two guys are off, say, and they don't generate any points and it's left to the rest of the team, I'm sure that they could, but I think you'll see a closer battle. So yeah, that's why I have McKinnon as my first line center on my second line, and Crosby on the wing, which I know a lot of people hate. Most people see him as a center because that's what he's comfortable as. That's what he's played his whole career. But it's like you said, Juggy, sometimes you're not always going to get your way. Crosby, you can't be a baby about it. He's sometimes just going to have to suck it up. And with those two, I have Marchand. So I have the Nova Scotia line, the Maritime line. I just think it'd be cool. I brought this up before. I think these guys all train together in a normal year. I know they didn't do it this year. I think Marchand stayed in Boston. But when these guys get together in Halifax and, they train together, they see how each other play, and they know each other. Maybe if you're not on the same team and you're not practicing every day with these guys, sometimes it's harder to know everything about their game. And that's why I just like having these three guys together personally.
Yeah, no, interesting. The Maritime angle. Sid and Marchand have obviously played together internationally, and they train together, so they have that experience. And then, McKinnon, like you said, him and Crosby training together, and then obviously them doing commercials and stuff. I'm sure they have a pretty solid relationship. No, I don't mind that one at all. I mean, if you're not going to put McKinnon in the top line, you want to put him with an elite player. And obviously Sid, I still think Sid's playing at a high level and he'll be able to do that. How about you, Sawyer? Who do you got on second line?
I don't think that there's a chance Crosby will play the wing. I think if anything, McKinnon would move over. I love the point, and I didn't even notice, but that whole Nova Scotia line. Not only that, it's like a greater Halifax line, which is really, really cool. I think, especially for Eastern Canada and all of us up here to watch. I don't think it's realistic that Crosby will play on the wing. I think, again, if anything, McKinnon would move over. I do have Sid and Marchand playing together, just not on this line. So I couldn't agree more, Shay, with that combination. My second line center is McKinnon for obvious reasons. I feel he's probably the second best player in the world behind McDavid. Maybe a toss up between him and Matthews right now. And I think McKinnon's a gamer. I think that he rises to the occasions. I think he's just insanely competitive. I've seen it. I think that he's going to be a beast. Not that he has really anything to prove, but he'll play like he does. I think that he's going to be just dynamite in the Olympics. And I really hope again that, the Olympics go through for that reason. My left winger, I got Huberdeau. I think Huberdeau he's the best left winger on the team. I just feel for chemistry reasons. And again, I feel the top two lines are going to really roll. I don't think there's going to be like a first line that is a standalone. I think the top two, even three scoring lines will pretty well roll. So I got Huberdeau on the left wing with McKinnon. They both played in the queue. Huberdeau, as everybody mentioned, is fantastic. I think he's the best left winger in the country. McKinnon at center. And then I got Marner. On the right side. I think he's so crafty. He's used to playing with a superstar right now in Matthews. He knows how to maximize that relationship. I think he'll do the same with McKinnon. And I feel like that's going to be an extremely dangerous line, and not necessarily the second line. I feel like both those two lines are obviously first lines. And as I mentioned earlier, I feel like the Stammer and Point can be exchanged at any point for Huberdeau and Marner between those two centermen, McDavid and McKinnon. And when in doubt, when there's a moment of need, you put McKinnon on the right wing with McDavid and you go ahead with that speed. But I really think that having that speed on back-to-back lines is going to be so dangerous, because if you have the two together, McDavid and McKinnon, and they happen to have an off night, it's an off night together probably, right? If the line isn't jamming, where McDavid's allowed to have an off night because you got McKinnon right behind him and vice versa. And not to mention, some of those other countries don't have the depth defenseman to shut down two absolute superstars back to back. Usually you're going to have your Victor Hedman against McDavid, and then who's coming next, right? And that's even the good countries, the United States and Finland and those guys. So I don't feel like they have enough defensive depth to stop those guys on separate lines.
That's a lethal second line. I mean, that's going to be some fast. I don't know how people are going to try to contain that. Like you said, you're coming at them in waves, and eventually even the greatest teams break down eventually defensively. So I can't argue with that line. I like it. I like it a lot. And I think Huberdeau, I think it just says a lot about Huberdeau that he's in all of our top six, I think, if I remember correctly. This guy doesn't get talked about because he plays in Florida, but kudos to him for being an elite player without needing the notoriety, that, Mitch Marner gets every other day when, Huberdeau is a better player. So kudos to him and everything that comes with it. But Casey, who do you have as on your second line?
My second line is looking pretty similar to what's already been said. Sidney Crosby is going to be in the middle there, and then he's going to be bringing along his buddy there, Brad Marchand. They just seem to be a tandem that works internationally. And then on the right side, this wasn't even really that tough for me behind throwing McKinnon in front of him. It's Mark Stone with Vegas. I think just like off of the sample size that I've seen from him this year, like he turns over pucks. He's always in on the forecheck. He just has an elite shot as well. Like I can remember back to World Juniors when he was going through that, and I just remember, anytime Canada needed a big goal, he was there. And that's kind of why I got him playing with Sid and Brad Marchand, so they can kind of carry him, and he can kind of maybe sit in the high slot, just high glove.
Oh, I like that line, Case, and I like it because that's a high IQ line. One thing we know that Sid possesses is a very, very high hockey IQ, and so does Mark Stone. He's not the fastest guy. He's not by any smart, and that's what makes him such a great player. He just knows the 200. He knows how to play a 200-foot game, and that's what's making him an elite player, and more importantly, the captain of that squad.
Yeah, no, Stone was a guy for my line. I really considered him because I think this year He's been an elite player for a long time. When Ottawa went on their run, he was a catalyst in that. I mean, they were a goal away from a Stanley Cup final with him on the roster. But, him as a captain now, Vegas, if they're not in the top 3 of the Stanley Cup favorites, well, they should be. So, I like that line as well. I think it's like a great point, Shay, is when it comes to hockey IQ. I think you're dead on the money there. And for me, I have a similar line to Casey, but I went a little different. I had Sid in the middle. I think he'll be the captain. I don't think there's a chance that they'll give it to McDavid over Sid. If Sid does somehow play the wing, he'll have to get the captaincy because that's kind of a trade-off for me. If that happens, he needs his flowers, he needs his cupcakes, so that'll happen. But I got him in the middle with Marshy, like we've been saying, and I got Marchand's teammate Patrice Bergeron on the right side. I've seen this line internationally. It works. I think, again, we all kind of like high hockey IQ. Patrice Bergeron, Mark Stone, I think they have a similar hockey brain. Patrice Bergeron, I think a lot of people are thinking he was going to lose a step this year. He hasn't lost a step whatsoever. He's playing elite hockey for the Bruins. They continue to win, and in the toughest division in the NHL. And he still looks great. Maybe next year he falls off a cliff, but predicting the team right now, I think Sid would want him on the line too. So I think that's another reason why he gets there for me.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. And I love that everyone's bringing up Stone, especially this early in the lineup. I love the player. I think he's on everybody's roster at one point. No, I think it's a great point. That line, not to spoil, well, I won't have much to say here in the next round because that is my third line. No, and again, I feel these lines are all interchangeable. I love that you put Marshy, Bergeron, and Sid. And again, Sid's going to want to play with those guys. I really feel that.
Yeah.
And at center as well. So yeah, no, I think those are some great picks.
Yeah, and I think the line it might be better suited as a third line. As you guys have pointed out with McKinnon playing center. I mean, if that's your third line, that's better than any third line in the tournament. I can say that pretty confidently. Yeah. I don't care who the Russians are bringing over from Kazakhstan to play for them. They're not matching that. They're not matching that with imports, whoever the hell else they got coming over from Shamus's closet over there. But it's not going to match that. So yeah, sorry, you got that as your third line. So Shay, who's on your third line?
Yeah, well, this is where mine drops off because unlike you, Sawyer, I kind of loaded my top 6 with probably the better players. You guys may disagree on that or agree on that, but I have the factor. Ryan O'Reilly is my on my left side. Great two-way player, but another one of these high hockey IQ guys that we talked about. He'll be able to slap it around, no problem. And I think he just plays whatever game you kind of need him to. And in the middle for him, there's Mark Scheifele. I mean, we don't even have to get started on Mark Scheifele's year this year and how much of a presence he is, especially in the Canadian division. But yeah, if he keeps on rolling like that all the way to the playoffs potentially, and then into the next year, no doubt he's got a top 9 notch in this team for Team Canada. And finally, Braden Point. I think either Sawyer Sawyer brought that up, that it was your top right winger, and yeah, he's definitely up there for me too. Love his game. Love. You guys must have seen his fight last night with Cogliano. I love that. He's a superstar, but he's not going to take no shit. Most guys would just chirp their way right to the bench. No, he got in it. He stared him down, gave him a death threat, and then proceeded to beat his ass. So I love that about him, and I just like this line. I think that they're definitely more of a defensive line, but I think all of them can play well together. I just see this line more clearly than I do with my other lines, to be honest.
Oh, interesting pair. O'Reilly on the wing. It's definitely interesting. I think I agree with you about Scheifele. There's no way he's not in your top 9. I mean, the guy, we mentioned hockey IQ. He might be the smartest player on the team, and that includes Sid. I mean, nobody watches more tape than Mark Scheifele. I mean, he's just a hockey
hockey nerd.
He's a hockey nerd. He says that all the
Knows
time.
everything.
And, even last night it was funny. Blake Wheeler was interviewed after the game and they asked him why he uses Scheifele sticks. And then Wheeler said, he's my favorite player. So it's just funny seeing these guys. And, again, you can't go wrong with the line. I mean, it's strong and I like it as a checking line. I think it would work really effectively because all the guys do it already and they're playing top 6 roles on their team. So that fits well. Case, how about your third line?
My third line here, I got Stamkos on the left side. I think what Sawyer said earlier about how he has a little bit to prove internationally after 2014 and not being on the team, losing his spot after he broke his leg and all the tragic stuff that happened after. Then I got Mark Scheifele in the middle. He's just an agreeable third line center for me. Like he's a top line guy in Winnipeg, but and then on the right side I got Braden Point. Just him and Stamkos, they have that connection from Tampa Bay. I think that's that's one thing that the Braden Point I think will bring to the table is he knows Stamkos' game and he knows Stamkos is going to be sitting back post. So that's with Scheifele and Point working everything and Stamkos kind of just sitting there ready to do his thing. That's good enough for me right there on the third line.
No, I obviously Point and Scheifele have kind of been closely aligned here. I got them on my line as well, but I put on the right side, and I did this one for Shay. I had to get some Leaf content in there. I got Marner on the third line. He's we all like to joke about the Leafs, and it's more in fun than anything, of course. But he's playing at a very high level right now, and I think him passing the puck to a Point or a Scheifele, you might not say they're natural goal scorers, but they can bury the puck. Point was very close to winning the Conn Smythe last year if Victor Hedman just didn't go crazy. And he was scoring goals and doing it all. And then you got, like we said, Scheifele who can score at will. So, Stamkos is a name I've heard from all of you, and I'm really starting to reconsider it, but I couldn't put him in because I just haven't seen enough from him lately. He's got a big name when it comes to all time and goal scoring, but it's for what you've done for me lately. I need to see a bit more from him. So I kept him off my team to be a spoiler alert here before the fourth line.
Yeah. In Stammer's defense, he has been injured for, a year. And he did score 65 goals. And like you said, it wasn't lately, but I think it's hard to deny him. And like Casey brought up, I think he's got a chip on his shoulder after getting hurt for the last Olympics and everything going on in Tampa. I loved hearing everybody have Scheifele because I haven't watched Scheifele play this year, but I don't have him on my roster. So spoiler alert. And I feel like this is the first line that we're starting to have guys that turn on each other's rosters that we have. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting.
So you're going to have some death.
No, go ahead, Shay.
Oh, I was going to say, you're going to have some death threats from Winnipeg fans, Sawyer. Because Mark Scheifele is just, he's good. He's just everything you want in a player. He's gritty, but at the same time, like Juggy said, just very, very high hockey IQ.
Yeah.
And I think he's got an underrated shot, and I think he's able to score. And I love that line. I think your line, Casey, of Point, Stammer, and Scheifele. Because like you, Juggy, spoiler alert, I don't have Stammer in the lineup. He's just not a guy I see in a year being good enough to be on this team. For you, Sawyer, I see Scheifele being a little bit more of a presence, but who knows, in a year from now, maybe that changes. Maybe Scheifele's hurt and he gets in that lineup, or maybe, one of these guys fades away.
Or Stamkos gets injured again.
Well, that's a high possibility, Juggy. That's a high possibility.
Yeah. You know what I love about this discussion, and it makes it so fun is, again, I said my first two lines were kind of interchangeable, but I got Stammer pegged as first line, and Shamus has him in the seats.
Yeah.
You know,
Putin's, baby, Putin's.
yeah,
He's in PK's seat.
yeah.
Well, Sawyer, since you don't have Scheifele, why don't you lead off the fourth line? Who do you have anchor in the most important line?
I would love to. This is the line I built first, and I built the most thoughtfully. Okay. And I could try to be hilarious and just pick a bunch of guys like Wilson and Anderson and all these guys that I love. But I won't. I'll be realistic. I got O'Reilly at my fourth line center. I think he is absolutely dynamite. He's a player that rises to the occasion. He's a warrior, team first guy. He's the guy that I am confident that if they say, hey, we have all these superstars, we need you to take on more of a defensive role and kind of step out of the spotlight that you've been in the last couple of years. I think O'Reilly would take that gladly. And that'll lead me into my next guy, and that's Sean Couturier. I got him on the left wing. I think he's the same guy. He's a superstar. Him and O'Reilly, every player on this team is an absolute superstar, and somebody's going to have to play on the fourth line. Somebody's going to have to block shots. Somebody's going to have to play PK. And I think that O'Reilly and Couturier are guys that would take that role. Couturier early in his career really played below his offensive potential because he was a team first guy. For the first, whatever it was, half decade he was in the league, he played as a third line center defensive role. And he's a quiet guy that just, team first. Eventually he, went in and Jug, we talked about this when it happened. It was so exciting, especially for him as he's such a good guy. He went in, talked to the coach, said, hey, I can get points too. They give him a chance, and he's been an absolute superstar ever since. The fact that he hasn't won a Selke shakes my head. He certainly will.
He won it last year.
Or he won it last year. There we go.
Check the game notes, bud.
Put in mouth. Yeah. Anyway, so there you go. Couturier, O'Reilly. And then on the right wing, I got Stone. And I got Stone, again, he probably could have played maybe a line or two higher.
Yeah.
Based on the chemistry and things. I wanted him here on the fourth line. And again, he's just like those other two guys. I think that he'll adapt. He'll take on that role. He's okay stepping out of the spotlight and being the defensive superstar that he is as well. So that's who I got on my fourth line, boys.
Yeah, I like it because I agree with you about Couturier and O'Reilly. Most of all, they're guys that had to fight to get to the league, to get where they are. O'Reilly had to go through Buffalo, for God's sake. I mean, if anybody can survive that, you can go through this. And Couturier, like you said, he's a guy who's always had a chip on his shoulder. He believes in himself, but he's also very good defensively. He won't complain about playing, 8 to 10 minutes a game because he knows it's for the greater good. If he wins a gold medal, it doesn't really matter. If he does his role and they win, he still gets the gold medal. So I like that a lot. And obviously I agree with you. Stone, I could have put higher, but I think he fits in well to this line because he'll get minutes playing penalty kill. He'll get extra minutes on this team. Like you said, lines are interchangeable. Bergeron will be a year older for me. Maybe he gets a shift with Crosby every now and then, maybe double shifts or something like that. So, but I love the fourth line. I think it's a great fourth line for the Olympics, and I have no qualms with it whatsoever. Shay, you're similar to Sawyer. Or any changes?
No, very, very similar, actually. Sorry, I was just about to bring that up. We have the same line, except I haven't said his name yet on the pod, but Bergeron's my fourth line center. I keep waiting for Bergeron to slow down, like you said, Juggy, and he keeps proving me wrong every year. As a Toronto fan, that kind of hurts a little bit. But yeah, no, he's obviously elite. He's there's the 4 or 5 Selkies that he has speaks for themselves. But this is just like what we said, just a shutdown line. You might have a really good second or third line coming out, and you might send these guys out instead of the other 2 lines because you don't know, not looking for a goal, but maybe just shut them down. You're trying to protect a lead. So that's what I'm looking for here. And I when I picked this line, I was thinking about guys that are willing to accept a role that maybe they wouldn't during the regular season or during the playoffs, and that's just don't score, but maybe just shut down the other team's best line, and that's what I got. So yeah, it's like you said about Stone, he definitely could play higher. Even the first line guy sometimes probably even on this team just because of that high hockey IQ, but
right.
yeah, it's just that, that's where I have him for now. I'm sure that's interchangeable though, for sure.
No, all good points. Bergeron, I just like having him on the team because it just feels good to have him. Yeah, he's
For sure.
Canada personified, so I like that. Casey, how about you? Your fourth line. I know you went off the board. I just have a feeling.
No, I stayed pretty on the board. I feel after Sunday and we had a little mishap there, I said, you know what? I can't afford to put a guy that's going to get an 80-year suspension on the roster. So, you know what? I said I'll fix things up here. So, I agree with what Sawyer and Shamus said. I got O'Reilly and I got Sean Couturier on the bottom line. But where I differ from the boys is I got Barzell down there.
Ooh,
yeah, he's a little different. He's not really the typical fourth line player that you're going to see. But he's like McDavid and McKinnon. He wheels around, and good luck catching him. That's all I gotta say.
Or Matty B.
Yeah, no, he's so highly skilled, and maybe he'll add an offensive touch to that line that it doesn't have. I think if he didn't play in the Island, I think he'd be a higher profile player for sure. Barry Trotz keeps him locked up pretty good, but like you said, Casey, he's top 10 fastest players in the league for sure. I got O'Reilly and Stone myself, but Casey didn't want to go off the board.
Oh, boys.
And, I love going off the board. It's no secret if you listen to the podcast, Josh Anderson's my guy. I love him. I don't have him on the team though. I do love him though. But I went with Daddy, the first guy. I got Tom Wilson down there on the fourth line. And, I'm sure a lot of even you guys were like, what the hell, Tom Wilson?
He ran over Ovi this week, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
The best teammate he has, he ran him over. Just so you know.
Just to prove a point.
He wants for ice time. He's like, I got to get this guy I got to get this guy in the IR.
He's proven dominance.
Yeah. And there's a reason I have him on the team. Obviously, physical presence. He's faster than people give him credit for. He's a freight train on skates. He's an excellent penalty killer, which I think him and Stone playing penalty kill together. Good luck with that. Even, the Russian power play with Ovi, you're going to have your problems with it. And he just adds that flair. I'd want to watch that line. Him go out there that first shift and just run some Latvian guy who sells chalk on his spare time. What the hell is he doing at the Olympics? So do I? I don't think there's a chance in hell he makes the team, but on my roster he would, just for pure entertainment.
You know what that reminds me of, Jug? You watched the Michael Jordan documentary when he goes out and plays against that no-name player there that called him out. That's what that reminds me of. I feel like the way Michael Jordan played against those other international players, I feel like Tom Wilson would just run over some 19-year-old kid from Belarus and just ruin his life.
Yeah. No, and he would never play again. He would just, they might need some spares ready because there might be a suspension or two in the tournament, but they can kill the penalty.
Yeah. Hey, the more I think about it, put him on the first line. Let's do it.
Ryan Reeves.
He needs to protect McDavid. There's a lot of headhunters out there. All great lineups from. I think it's a lot of fun. Again, I don't think Wilson has a chance in hell, but for fun for me, I got Horvat and Suzuki as kind of extra forwards for me. They're the two I didn't include. How about you, Sawyer? Who's an extra guy for extras for you on the team, just outside of making it?
Yeah, so I had three written down originally. One was Scheifele and Barzell, but also JT. I don't think JT will make it. He's kind of the third guy. I think the two spares would be Barzell and Scheifele, but I also mentioned JT just because he's good. He has that leadership presence as well. Scheifele, I haven't watched much this year. I just kind of found him through the research I was doing before. And Barzell, is really good, to Casey's point. So those were kind of my 2 of 3 spares.
Okay, how about you, Shay?
I had Barzell as well, and I mentioned I didn't have him in my lineup, but I had Stammer, of course. At the end of the day, it's kind of like in the playoffs last year where he only played one game, came on the ice for 3 minutes, scored a goal. he could probably do that here. Like, he's just that dynamic, and he's that great of a goal scorer with that great of a shot. So Barzal and Stammer are my two spares to poutine eaters.
And Casey, for you.
I agree with your point there on Nick Suzuki. I threw him in there, and my last one with tribute to my good bud Shay. It's Mitchell Marner on the outside looking in.
He declined the invite to the Olympics. He'd be like, "Oh, I'm not playing. Yeah, I'm not going to show up."
So let me get this straight. Shay, you had him as your first line right winger, right?
Yeah.
And Casey has him off the roster. And my first line left winger was Stammer, and you guys have him off the roster.
Yeah.
I had him on though.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, me and Shay have him. I don't even have him going to the tournament.
You have him sitting home eating popcorn, watching
the game. Yeah, he's live streaming the event.
Yeah, if his Wi-Fi is good.
Yeah, it's a little spotty in Tampa here, but yeah, no, it's interesting how we differ on certain players. You know, Stamkos, and then again, it's funny.
I gotta ask. So Juggy, you don't have Barzal in your lineup or as a spare, but you have Suzuki and Horvat. Is that just because you don't like Barzal's head at? You don't think his game's all there developably? Like, just say someone was to get hurt,
right?
And would have to enter one of these guys. You're not comfortable with Barzal being that guy?
Yeah, I would say that Horvat or Suzuki can play a bottom six role better than Barzal defensively, and you could promote a Stone or a Marner to a top six line and just plug and play Suzuki or Horvat. Horvat kind of plays a top line role, but he plays good defensively now. And Suzuki, I think, is the next Patrice Bergeron. So I have him slated to do that. So
with those guys too, I think they don't expect to make the team. So if they made it and they played 2 minutes a night, they'd be full of piss and vinegar for those 2 minutes. Yeah. You know what I mean?
They give you their best effort for sure. I think a guy like Stamkos, I don't think it'd sit well with him. He'd be sitting in the press box, and I think he'd stew over it. Tavares, I see similarly. I think he's a pretty prideful guy. I think these guys, like you said, Sawyer, they don't expect to make it. And if they're there, they're going to enjoy the experience. I think they'll take in everything it has to offer. And if they do get that call from the bullpen, so to speak, they'll be ready and anxious to get on the ice. So that's our forward group. We'll go to defensemen. This will be fine. I mean, we got Sawyer here. He's NHL drafted defenseman. He knows defensemen better than anybody. So let's start with you. Who's your top line D pair for this Canadian team?
Sure. So I struggled a little bit here just with a couple guys aging. I have a bit of a veteran. Like I have a real extreme lineup. I have real young guys and real, veterans. I mean, old in early 30s, but old for, the Olympic game and for the NHL, or aging, I guess. I have Makar as my first line defenseman. I think he's emerging. He was so good last year. He's so good this year. He'll be even better next year. I think he's going to be what Drew Dowdy was when Dowdy was 18, back in the day. Dowdy was so electric. People were wondering, is he old enough? Is he good enough? Is he there yet? And he went and he had something to prove. And he really emerged as an absolute superstar in a wagon. And people knew that name around the world after that Olympic play for Dowdy. So I see that for Makar, the young stud that's just going to go out there and smash it. And then on the right side, I have the big righty, Petra Angelo. I think he brings a veteran presence. He's a leader. He's very consistent. He's very good. And he's a right-handed shot. And I think that he plays both ends of the ice very, very well. Plus when you're playing with a young buck like Makar, I think having that veteran next to him would be very, very beneficial. So I got Makar and Petra Angelo for my first line.
No, I like that. Petra Angelo can add offense, but also play a great defensive role. We've seen that for St. Louis and then obviously in Vegas this year. And I agree with Makar. I think the sky's the limit for that kid. The fact that they got to draft him and then they drafted Bowen Byram with the Ottawa pick. Colorado is looking damn good for the future on the back end as a team as a whole. Shay, who's your top line D pair?
Similar. Alexander Pietrangelo. Obviously, he played there 2014. He was a factor, and he'd be a clear factor here he'd probably wear an A, honestly, if it was up to me, because, I think he'd play a leader role. Obviously, he brought that team to the Cup Finals. And like you said, Juggy, he plays both ways. If you need him to play more of a defensive role, great, he'll do that. He can play probably a little bit on the PK as well. And beside him, I have his teammate, Shay Theodore, who I think is emerging as one of these top defensemen throughout the league. You clearly see that he's a point per game defenseman right now. Who knows? Maybe I could even see him taking another step in his game next year. I know he's 26, 27 years of age, but he's electric. He's got unbelievable handles. He's even great, like even in and around the net. So if he wanted to play more of an offensive game, I'm sure Petro would play a more stay-at-home defensive game. So yeah, I just like those two guys together. Obviously, they're teammates. They know each other. They probably have played at least a little bit together. I know probably in Vegas right now they play on different pairings, but for this, I would like to see them together.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, I agree with Theodore. I mean, the fact that Anaheim let him available in the expansion draft and they protected Vatanen and Lindholm is still a question mark to me. But they're paying for it dearly. And last year in the playoffs, he was Vegas's best defenseman by a quarter mile. And he was almost able to get them to a Stanley Cup final playing, close to 27 minutes a night. So he can handle a heavy workload. And like you said, the playing with Petra Angelo will definitely help because they have that familiarity. Case, how about you?
Yeah, I'm right up there. I got the same thing with Theodore and Petra Angelo.
Yeah, I do as well. So I got Theodore and Petro with you two. But I could see why you put Makar with Pietrangelo, because I agree he needs a defensive defenseman, so to speak, to play with him, because he's going to take some chances and he'll get burned every now and then.
And that's what we want out of a young Makar, I feel. We want him to take chances. We want him to be electric and exciting. And then, the guys that have been there, done that, the Petrangelos of the world, they can kind of hang back and let the kid do his thing. That's, full of energy and full of excitement and, their first time at the dance. And Theodore, he is on my roster. I think Theodore is fantastic as well. How
about your second pair, Sawyer?
Yeah. So my second pair, I went again with a young buck and an older veteran that's been there, done that. So I'll start with Thomas Shabbat. I think he's the next guy for me. Young, emerging. He doesn't have much to play with in Ottawa. I love that he signed the deal with them. I mean, when you're making that many millions of dollars, it's not that hard. But a guy like that had choice, to an extent. Like if he wanted out, he could have played hardball and went somewhere else. He committed to signing a deal, and he became the one little glimmer of hope that Ottawa had before this past draft when they got a couple picks. So I like that about him. He crushed the World Juniors. He proved that he can rise to the occasion, be a leader on the World Junior team. He won the tournament MVP. He's a big body out there, which I think helps. He moves very well, and he's a big body, which helps in the Olympic size ice. So I got Shabbat. And then I got my boy, Drew Dowdy. I love Dowdy. I loved him since the moment he stepped into the league. He's such a natural talent. He's got such just a casualness about him. Sometimes too casual, and he's also got some fight in his game, when he was rubbing shoulders with Tkachuk last year. Dowdy plays the game on edge, but he also brings like a real calming presence, and his natural talent's just through the roof. I think that with the extra space of international ice, I mean, we've seen him before, but I think that he'll be really good again on that Olympic ice surface. And I think it's good to put him, who's been there, done that, with a guy like Shabbat who hasn't been to the Olympics yet.
Yeah, interesting. Again, Shabbat, another new name. I like the Dowdy ad. I think he's been kind of written off, but he's having a strong season in LA for a bad team. And he's having to play 27 minutes a night. You need some of that experience on these teams, and he's won 2 gold medals. He knows what to do. And I still think he's got a lot to offer. Shay, what's your second line D pair look like?
Yeah, and to your point, and to both your guys' points, I can't believe that you look online and some of these people don't have Dowdy in this tournament. I mean, I think experience is just invaluable. Like he's been there, he's done that, he's climbed the mountain, and it's not like this team because we've had such a gap between the 2014 and 2022 Olympics where there was no NHLers. Team are either not good enough anymore or not in the league anymore. So I think when you still have one that can play at a high tempo like Dowdy can, I think you almost have to add them in there, if that makes any sense. And it's like you said, Juggy, he's having a bounce back year this year. I hope he rolls with that, rolls right into next year and has another strong year, because he's up there for me. And I have him with Cale Makar. Kind of similar to you, Sawyer. I have a veteran with a young buck. Because Drew Dowdy probably he knows what Makar's going through. Being the new kid, he'll be the youngest player on the team. He knows he's just full of piss and vinegar, and he just wants to go and wheel and deal. So I think Dowdy will play a more reserved role for me, but I definitely have those two as my 3 and 4.
No, I like the point of, him knowing what he's going through. The biggest battle they'll have is who's going to wear number 8 for in the tournament. No, I like that. Again, Dowdy's a solid guy to play with Makar, and I think they play really well together, just because Makar is running gun, but Dowdy can be at times, but he'll know his role. Again, he's playing at the Olympics. He's not playing for the LA Kings, where he has to be Superman, where he's playing with Sean Walker or Curtis McDermott. So I think he'll just be happy to play with somebody that's on his level. Casey, how about you?
Well, I agree with the Cale Makar. I got him down on the second D pair. Now, who I got him with, I scratched out 100 names. I swear to God, trying to pick who would I throw with Cale Makar? Who's gonna be able to shadow his game and let him be the offensive defenseman? I went with Dougie Hamilton. He's off the board. I think some people don't really have him pegged as Olympic worthy, maybe, but I don't know. He seems like a kind of a standout D for being a Canadian, right? So
yeah, he's certainly elevated his game in the past couple of years. I think he's a free agent at the end of the year. He's going to get a good payday somewhere if it's not in Carolina. But I agree with you. He's emerged as a number 1 defenseman. He plays with another one, but you look at Carolina this year, they're tied with Tampa Bay in the standings for a reason. They got a strong D-core with Pesce, Dougie Hamilton, and among others. So interesting to have Hamilton, but I don't hate the pick, because I think he's a good D.
Yeah. The only thing I would say would be that Hamilton and Makar both maybe more in that either one of them can change their game. I just where Dougie Hamilton kind of runs their power play, and he's looking to shoot. I don't know if that's the pick for me, but I respect it, Casey.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that Hamilton and Makar are both pretty high risk, but they're such good players. I mean, we're talking about the world's best here, so it's so hard to plug these guys in. But I also thought, Shamus too, that Dowdy and Makar might be a little too high risk as well.
Maybe, yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, these guys are all so good. And to Casey's point, Hamilton, Makar, they're professionals. They can play together. They can adjust. They're both not going to be pinching on the same time at the same time. It's not house league. These guys are world class. I think those are good picks.
Yeah, I got Makar like Shay and Casey, but I like to go off the board. And I went off the board with Wilson. Casey went a little off the board with Dougie Hamilton. Well, I took his teammate. I got Jacob Slavin with Makar. Jacob Slavin, again, people might not even know the name. He's one of the more underrated defensemen in the NHL. He's not going to put up a lot of points. He's not going to ever win a Norris Trophy, because you need to score 80 points now and be bad defensively to win the award. But he's old school. He reminds me a ton of Scott Niedermayer. He's a really good skater. He can block shots. He's just such a smart defenseman. He's playing on a team that's winning for a reason. And I think he's never going to take a bad chance. And Makar can take 100. And you're going to have a Slavin back there who can play the Mark Mathot type role with Erik Karlsson when Erik Karlsson was Erik Karlsson. And he'll be solid and just, he can chip in offensively, but that's not what you need him to be here. He'll just be that guy. He'll play penalty kill. I love him as a player, and it's off the board, but he would be on the team for me.
That pick, Jug, that reminds me of I don't know which Olympics it was, but when Mark Edward of Vlasic made the team, and you know, we don't watch many San Jose games up here, and we don't really talk about. Well, he wasn't really in many conversations, but he was steady and he made the team, and it did surprise some people, but he proved worthy. So I certainly didn't have Slavin on my roster, but that could be another Mark Edward Vlasic type pick.
Yeah. No, Shay, I want to hear from you because I know I don't know if you're a big fan of him, so I'm interested to hear what your thoughts on Slavin.
I was going to hold my tongue, but I think Jacob Slavin is from below us. I think he's American.
No, he's represented Canada on an international level. He's played at the Worlds.
So he's played, I thought he played his World Junior year in the US. Does he have dual citizenship?
Dual citizenship. Yeah. He's played for Team Canada at the Worlds.
Oh, okay. I was not aware of that. I hadn't seen that in his records, but that's if he is, then that's great. He's penciled in on my.
Hey, Shay, did he win a Selkie or what? God. Whoops.
Oh, I always thought he was American. I don't know. I just looking up where he's from, but that's just lack of research by me because I would have had him in my roster.
No, you're right because he's lived in both Canada and the States in his life. So he lived in Alberta for a period of time.
Has he got like a Canadian hockey player dad, or what's his story there?
Yeah, he had a dad that played over here. Not in the NHL, but kind of American Hockey League type, lower league type stuff. And I think he lived in Alberta for close to 8 to 10 years, and then the States for another 10. So he's got dual citizenship. He's kind of like Danny Heatley with the German citizenship and Canada. So 1507 Slavin in 2022. Final D pair, Sawyer. Who do you got?
So I got Theodore, which I think is obvious that he's on the team. I got him on the third pairing. Again, I mean, all six of all for sure 5 of 6, if not 6 of 6, could play anywhere in the lineup. I got Theodore for obvious reasons. I think you guys touched on the reasons why he's on the team. And then I also got Shay Weber. So Weber to me I have him pegged as my 6th defenseman. I like him because he's a veteran, been there, done that. He's got an absolute bomb of a shot. I believe in one of the Olympics, he put a puck through the net. I mean, and he's such, again, similar to Dowdy, he gives such a calming presence to these young guys in the ice and in the dressing room. And again, he's been there, done that. So I got Weber out there, and I think he's a team first guy. I think that Weber, the last time he played in the Olympics, he was maybe the best defenseman on the team. And I think that he's okay being, a third pairing and having, less minutes and things like that. I just think he's a team first guy. So I got Theodore and Weber on my third pairing. Yeah,
no, I like the way that we're structuring these deep pair because you got Theodore who can take a chance, and you got Weber who's used to staying back in Montreal now, never being the fastest player. So I don't think he'll take a lot of chances. So I like that about the deep pair a lot. Shay, how about you?
So Sawyer, he was the best defenseman in the last Olympics, but the last Olympics was 8 years ago. And there's no goddamn way I'd have Shay Weber on this team. Not saying that, that he's not good. I'm just saying he's maybe just lost that speed. And what he lost in speed, he kind of made up for in like just positional skill, I would say. He's not going to make my team, but I'm going to have to put my boy on the line here, Morgan Riley, as a 5'6" defenseman. Just an offensive presence. He's just a wheeler deal. He's almost like a fourth forward. Sometimes he gets in that rush. So he's got to be on this team. I know a lot of people had him higher. I'm a humble guy. I realize he's maybe not better than a Makar or a Theodore or a Petro, but I definitely got to have him in there. And he's in this. I'm going to switch on the go. I said I didn't change my lines, but after discussion with you, Juggy, Slavin's got to be on this team. He's just a bomb. So, and that pairing would just be effective because Slavin could play the stay at home, kill off penalties to play, where Morgan Riley clearly is just more of an offensive threat. So yeah, that's my last pairing.
So who did you have otherwise until you found out where Slavin was from?
Yeah, this might come to another surprise, but I had Aaron Ekblad as my sixth guy. I think he's having a much better year this year, and I think he could have raised his game even again next year, and maybe throughout the offseason if he prepared and knew that he had a chance to be on this team. Because I'm sure with a lot of these guys, say you're on the fence about making this team, well, you don't want to take the chance that you came in out of shape, or you didn't prepare as much as you could. So I see all these guys doing their best to just be ready if they get that call. You know what I mean?
See, I'm going to jump in there because I think that Riley, he reminds me of a lot of PK Subban when he came as a spare. He won the Norris that year and he came as a spare. And he had a hot season, so they got him when he was hot, yes, but he didn't have that consistency to be in the lineup, even though he was voted the best defenseman in the NHL that year. I didn't feel he was best suited. I feel the same for Riley. I feel he had a hot season. He should have been nominated. I'm a Leafs fan too. I'll start by saying that. He should have been nominated for the Norris 2 years ago. He wasn't. He didn't follow it up with a fantastic season, and he chokes every year in the playoffs. So again, is he faster than Weber? Absolutely. Is he a better NHL defenseman than Weber? I think so. But I don't think he's going to be a better asset on the third pair of the Olympic team.
Yeah, I'll just jump in here. For Slavin, I'd love it if he did like an NCAA decision, like he's got the two hats and he grabs Canada's and then Canada and just say screw you to the US. But with the whole Weber Riley thing, I don't have either on my roster, but I couldn't. I mean, Morgan Riley's a good little player. Good BC boy. We got a lot of love for him. It's not his fault that he's playing number one defenseman role in Toronto for a lot of years. They like to do that to number three defensemen. So that's not his fault. But I just think there's better options. I would have Weber above Riley. So I'm kind of with Sawyer in that camp if I had to pick one or the other. But yeah, Casey, who do you got? I like this contention here as we get down to it. I like it.
Well, I'll go off the board and say that I would take Weber over Riley. Yeah. Riley's not sniffing my roster either. So, all right. So my third pairing here is I got Drew Dowdy for, he's been there, done that, like Sawyer said. That's, he's the GOAT right now for one of the. He's what Canadian defensemen are looking to be. When they come out of junior and make their transition, right? So playing with him, I don't know if Juggy maybe snuck him in, I don't know, but I got Colton Parayko on the last spot here.
Oh, that's a sneaky pick.
I figure Shamus wearing the Blues jersey, you'd maybe look that up on the hockey DB, but
yeah. Case, it hurt me because I wanted to put him in because he's so damn good. But I had to go with Shabbat. I had to go Shabbat Dowdy. I was going to take Dowdy out and put Parayko, but I went with Dowdy just for the experience. But if Slavin, grabs that US hat, the substitute for me is Parayko. I think the guy's got a bomb of a shot. He's a number one defenseman. He was playing under Petra Angelo. He was a number one defenseman for the past 2-3 years. He was a huge reason St. Louis won the cup because he just 8 minutes. And I mean that literally. He went on the ice. The teams could do nothing. He got off the ice, wash, rinse, repeat. But he's kind of the new Shay Weber for me. He's got the shot. He's got the body. He's got the hockey IQ. He's just kind of, and he's faster than Weber obviously is right now. Weber being 34 and with injuries and, just wearing down. But, I love, it was tough for me to leave him off my list, but he's my first spare when it comes to the defenseman.
Okay. Do you guys want to talk about spares? I'm really curious.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. Go ahead, Sawyer.
Okay, so I did have Shamus's boy Riley. Again, I'm a Leafs fan. I do like Riley, and I think he's good. I just don't think he's in the top 6, but he was actually my first spare. And it was a toss up between Hamilton and Morrissey. Hamilton, I mean, they have enough offensive defensemen, so I don't really think it would be him. Just because, if you need to plug a guy in for 5 to 8 minutes a night as a spare part, I don't think he's your guy. So yeah, those are my 2 picks.
Shay?
I have a guy. I think all 3 of you guys have him in your lineup. I have Shabbat, obviously. He's not getting replaced by Riley, but not on my lanes anyways. But he's clearly a great defenseman, and he's clearly so young that he could take his game to another level. He's, him and Brady Tkachuk are just dragging that poor Ottawa Senators team through the mud right now. And then I have Ryan Ellis. He doesn't get enough recognition internationally. He's a great player. He was unbelievable in the World Juniors, if you can remember that far back.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd want him on this team because he deserves to be there. And, I wouldn't put him over any of these guys, but he definitely deserves the experience.
Case?
I'm bringing for extras. I'm going with Thomas Shabbat. I didn't have him in my initial top 6, but he just missed out for me. And my last extra, I'm going way off the fucking board here. I want to bring some youth to this Olympics. I want to bring someone that has some youthful energy for those older guys. So I'm going with World Junior captain Byram.
Wow.
I don't know, just this what I've heard about him and stuff on the interweb there. He just seems like the kind of player that kind of brings out like the youth in the room, and it seems like the place that like he could kind of get some players going without having to be like an actual vital asset to the team,
No, interesting. I seen him on a few boards as an extra. I think it would be great for his development long term if he did go. I think that he'd enjoy the experience. My extras, I had Parayko and I put Weber. Riley was close, but every year, in March Madness, there's the March Madness tournament, and then there's the teams that don't make it, and they play in the NIT. So we'll send Riley to the NIT this year, maybe in 2026, but we'll see.
Sick.
Yeah.
That's sickening that none of you guys had Morgan Riley as on there, or I guess you had him as a spare, Sawyer, but
yeah. And I love watching him play. I mean, I'm a diehard Leafs fan. I love watching him play, but he reminds you of PK Subban, where Subban won the Norris. He was that good. But when you're talking the Olympics, it's a different ball game, and I just don't think Riley fits the mold as well as the other 6 guys.
I just see the space on the Olympic ice, and I just think he'd be able to run with that. I think a tighter game, more defensive game, but more space obviously it leaves more for him to run around in. And
I don't think you want that out of a thd pairing defenseman, especially if he's listed as your 6th defenseman. I don't think you want that. I think you mentioned Weber's speed. I couldn't agree more. And I think Riley's a better NHL player, but as the third, and you mentioned Weber's positioning, and as a 3rd line D pairing, I think you need a guy that's well positioned, a big guy that can eat shots, big clap bomb, but also a guy that's been there, done that, that isn't going to be high risk, and you put him out in those pressure situations.
Fair enough.
No, it's obviously a great team. I'm picking on Riley because I know Shay's on the podcast. He's a great player. Great player. He's a good player, not a great player. I should change that stance, but he's a good little player. That brings us to goaltending. Start of the year, I would have said this is the easiest to pick, but if you've watched Canadian goaltenders this year, it's like watching a train wreck. It's been bad. So we can go through all 3. Sawyer, we'll start with you. Who 1, 2, 3? Who do you got in the pecking order for Team Canada?
Sure. So I really struggle with this, especially for what's going on with the NHL Canadian goaltenders right now. But being a goaltender is tough, and sometimes you can have streaky periods. I think the most consistent and best Canadian goalie in the world is Carey Price, and I think that he's going through something right now, but I think he's the best. And again, I think he's calm, cool, collected. I think that with the excitement of being in the Olympics, he's a guy similar to Drew Dowdy, similar to Bergeron, similar to Petra Angelo, Weber. He's just going to be calm and composed, and he's going to make good decisions. I think that he's going to be fantastic. He may never have a chance to win a Stanley Cup. I don't think Montreal. I think if he sticks with Montreal, I don't think he will. So this might be his chance to really, wear his crown, and deservingly so. He's had a fantastic career. He's unreal. He's my number one goalie. Number two was Hart again, because the goalies are streaky, but I had Carter Hart as number two, young guy coming up. I think he's kind of the future of the Canadian goaltenders once Price kind of moves on. And then I got my third goalie is Binnington. So that was another one. It's like, I'm not really sure, but I'm really sure Carey Price. I think that he's the guy. I know he's aging, but I think he's got a lot to prove. Competitive guy, calm, cool, collected in the net. I think he'd be great. I think he'd be really good to be in, final minutes of a gold medal game.
I had the same. Price, I just bank on him turning it around. I mean, that's a year and a half away now, but Hart can't start yet for me. We haven't seen enough from him, but I like Price to bounce back, hopefully. Shay, how about you?
Originally jotted down same as both of you. Obviously it banks a lot on Carey Price being able to turn it around. And I'm not a Montreal hater, but he's garbage right now. He's not been able to be productive and not been able to stop the pucks he's need to stop. So if he plays like this right till, picking date, I think you got to leave him off, to be honest. I don't even think it's worth carrying him on, because it would just be a mess against some of these great offensive teams like US and Russia. And I think replacing him, I think you got to have maybe a guy who's hot right now. And I think that's Marc-Andre Fleury. And I don't know if that's stretching it. I don't know. Would he be your guy's fourth if you could bring that fourth guy there just in case, or is he not even in your thoughts?
Go ahead, Sawyer.
To be honest, I didn't consider him, but one thing I will agree, Shay, is I think Marc-Andre Fleury is a rise to the occasion type body. So, if you're going to take a flyer on anybody, take it on him. Look what he's done. Look at how he embarrassed the Pittsburgh organization. Look at how, fantastic Fleury's done. And I love him. His teammates love him. I didn't think of him beforehand, but yeah, I like the idea of him being on this team.
Yeah, he'd be right there for me. I would say it'd be the fourth, or maybe Mackenzie Blackwood from New Jersey would be the spares for me. I think he's a promising up and comer. And I think he's got a good potential if he can continue going. But yeah, I like the Fleury's played. He's the best Canadian goalie this year when it comes to play. So I think Binnington would be second. I think Hart is probably. I think Hart's worse than Price, and even though Price has been pretty god awful, I mean Hart's been just as bad. So, but obviously you're banking on potential turning that around. Casey, we'll close it up with you. Who do you have as your top three netminders?
My top three, I'm going with Marc-Andre Fleury as well to start. He right now he just seems to be riding that wave, and he seems to be hot ever since he left Pittsburgh, besides the agent trying to throw a wrench in between him and Robert Lehner there. I think he's right now, I think he's probably one of the better Canadian goaltenders. Number two, I got Carey Price. He's struggling, but I'll stay faithful. I'll stay faithful in him. And now my third goalie here, I got with the Arizona is Darcy Kemper.
Oh,
a little off the board, little hidden gem. Nice, get to see some sun down there in the Sunshine State.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think he's. Go ahead.
I think he's just like a hidden guy. Like you wouldn't think to look in Arizona for a good goaltender. So I just think he, with his numbers and stuff the last couple of years, I think he's a standalone guy for third for me.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, against Colorado last year, they would have got swept if it wasn't for him. He kept them in games. He's had a tough start to this season, but that's like every Canadian goaltender. So, Bob's your uncle on that one. I like that. Who would be your spare case? Binnington? Oh, he's taken off. So probably. I I like that. More I think about it, I probably like Fleury a little bit because he's solid. I think he can handle that number 3 role, but seeing Binnington freak out the other night kind of makes me want to put on the team too, because if he gets in the net, maybe he adds a little spice.
Actually, he had a meltdown at the Olympics. That would be unbelievable. Actually, that'd be unbelievable TV. Tom Wilson would go get a sussy, and then he would just freak out and go push the other goaltender down.
Boys, who do we got for captains and assistants? What do you guys like? I mean, we generally have the same roster, right? And 90% of the same roster. Like, who do you guys got for the captains and the assistants?
Why don't you start us off?
Yeah, sure. So I think Crosby's the obvious choice for captain. Are we doing 2 assistants or 3?
Let's do 2. I hate 3.
Okay. What about 3 captains?
Yeah.
3 Ks.
Yeah, no, I got Sid for captain. I think he deserves it. I think he's the guy. I got him a captain, and I got Petra Angelo as an assistant to help bring balance there on the back end. I think, again, I got him in my first line as well, so he's going to be playing big minutes if this was my team. I got him as assistant, and then I got the prodigy McDavid as the next assistant. I think that there's other guys like Dowdy, guys like Weber, guys you could give it to, but I think, if you're planning ahead and, foreshadowing passing that torch, I think McDavid's your guy. Like, I think that he is the assistant. I think he's going to play the most out of all the forwards, and I think he is the future of Hockey Canada. So those are my 3 picks.
No, I can't disagree with it. I think they all make sense for different reasons. Sid being, the placeholder, so to speak, the leader of the past couple Olympics. And you got, like you said, the prodigy playing in his first one, and Petra Angelo, who's just the best defenseman on the team. So that makes a lot of sense. And a captain for 2 different organizations. So that's impressive. Shay, how about you?
Well, I mentioned it earlier, and I know you guys aren't going to like it, but I think it's time for Cross to pass that torch.
Don't say Riley. Whatever you do, don't say Riley at captain, please.
I got to give my A and C to Marner and Morgan Riley. McDavid wears the C for me. I just think it's a passing of the torch moment, especially where he's going to be the face of this this new age of players, and I think it's important to do that because it shows him that he, that it's a responsibility moment. If you give it to Sid, which I don't doubt they will, I honestly I think they will, but I would just prefer to see McDavid wear the C. And that's just because, it's just signaling the passing of the torch. It's his team. It's his time to lead these guys. But yeah, no doubt. And then same as you guys, I would have Cross and Petro wearing A's.
Casey?
Yeah, I got Crosby wearing the C. I just, when I think of Crosby, I just see him just with that C on his chest. Like, it's just a mental image for me. But I got McDavid wearing an A, and I got Petra Angelo wearing an A as well. So pretty much the same. Just
to be a contrarian, because I like to do that from time to time. I'll have Sid wearing the C, Petra Angelo, but I'll put the A on Bergeron, not McDavid. Bergeron, he's been there, done that. He's won his cups, and Kunitz got on the team because Crosby wanted him on the team. If he's playing on Crosby's line, maybe Crosby wants his line mate to wear an A. Again, you might say that's crazy talk. You got Chris Kunitz, a guy who should never have been in the Olympics on the Canada's roster, which I'll never be okay with, but that's another podcast in and of itself there.
Bergeron he's a great choice. I mean, Big Z was the captain of Boston for a long time. Bergeron was the most captain-like assistant captain in the NHL.
Yeah,
forever.
Agreed.
100%.
Yeah, so I mean, Bergeron's a great. I mean, there's so many great picks. I mean, half this team is captains on their own respective.
Yeah,
right. So, it is. It's really hard, and they're going to have just a ton of leadership just all through the lineup, regardless of who wears the letters.
No, agreed. And this was fun. A couple laughs going through the roster, really starting to think about the Olympics, which is also obviously fun. It's only every 4 years. We're going to get NHL players back after them being idle in 2018. So something to look forward to when we get through this COVID mess, and hopefully they can get the summer games going. this summer. But, guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. We'll have to do another roundtable discussion on different things down the road, but thank you all for joining me. And I really enjoyed this.
Thanks a lot, buddy. It was a lot of fun chatting with you guys. And with everything, the pandemic, you don't get to see your buddies all the time. So it was really nice chatting, and it was a really fun topic to cover.
No, thanks for having us. Thanks for having us on, Juggy. This was great. And love chatting you guys, but at the same time, just like Sawyer said, it's nice just to see you guys at the same time.
Cheers, boys.
Absolutely.
Short and sweet.
Short simple.
Yeah. Absolutely. So everybody, thanks you for listening. Hope you guys really enjoyed this, because I know we all did. I'll be back tomorrow morning talking about Big Z returning to Boston tonight for the first time. Talk about Shay's Leafs looking for the sweep in Edmonton, and among other things, including some big NFL stories through this week. But until then, stay safe, and we'll talk soon.